The story of how TGI Fridays lost its flair is way more interesting than just people stopped liking mozzarella sticks. But before we talk about how yet another chain restaurant failed in the last couple of years, let's go back to a time when Fridays was America's favorite singles bar. Way back in 1965, Alan Stillman was a 28-year-old perfume salesman living on Manhattan's Upper East Side, looking to meet girls. His neighborhood was full of flight attendants and models, but the bars around them were all dark, dingy, and almost entirely male. So Stillman borrowed $5,000 from his mom and opened a bar designed to attract singles, both men and women, with the idea of bringing them together. It was a place with bright lighting, ferns, Tiffany lamps, red and white striped uniforms, fun cocktails, friendly bartenders, and it worked. Almost immediately. Lines wrapped around the block when TGI Fridays first opened. Traffic on First Avenue had to be shut down on Friday nights. The slogan said it all. In here, it's always Friday. That original TGI Fridays became one of the first true singles bars in America, right in the middle of the swinging 60s. And without really meaning to, Stillman had tapped into something massive. By the early 1970s, people outside New York wanted in. Fridays began franchising, opening locations in Memphis, Dallas, and beyond. But culture was shifting. The singles bar trend had faded as people got older, married, and had kids. And so, Fridays pivoted. The bar stayed important, but food became the main point. Potato skins arrived. Kids' menus followed. Mocktails showed up. By the late 70s and 80s, TGI Fridays had transformed into a full-blown casual dining chain. In 1975, Carlson Companies bought the brand and then started scaling it aggressively. By the early 80s, Fridays was everywhere. At the time, the average TGI Fridays location was generating better revenue per square foot than McDonald's. By 2008, the chain had over 600 US locations and more than 300 internationally, pulling in roughly $2 billion in annual sales. For a while, Fridays was defining a whole new category. What set it apart wasn't just the food, it was the vibe. Bartenders trained for months, memorizing hundreds of drink recipes. They flipped bottles, poured behind their backs, and turned happy hour into a show. The movie Cocktail was literally inspired by Fridays bartenders. Tom Cruise trained with them. Fridays even hosted global bartending championships and tried to get FLAIR bartending recognized as an Olympic sport. It was fun. It was loud. It was unapologetically extra. Sadly, it was all about to change. Quick pause. If you're loving the video so far, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Alright, let's get back. By the late 90s and early 2000s, casual dining had exploded. Applebee's, Chili's, Ruby Tuesday, Olive Garden. Everyone began using the same playbook, and Fridays lost its exclusivity. Pop culture turned on them when Office Space mocked their flares, and 4 years later, Fridays quietly got rid of them. Fridays decided it was better to just tone down a bit. The walls got quieter. The logo got simplified. Fridays reportedly spent millions trying to modernize and make things less flashy. It brought in more traffic, but it also erased what made Fridays special. And just as the brand lost its identity, a bigger threat showed up. Enter Chipotle, Panera, and Panda Express. Fast casual chains offered better perceived food, lower prices, faster service, and no tipping. Why wait 45 minutes for a $17 burger when you could grab something quicker, cheaper, cleaner, and healthier? This shift gutted casual dining as a category. And Fridays, built for long sit-down meals and busy bars, was especially exposed. Sales peaked in 2008 and never recovered after that. But the worst was yet to come. In 2014, TGI Fridays was sold to private equity firms Sentinel Capital and Tri-Artisan for about $800 million, and that's where the foundation cracked completely. In 2017, TGI Fridays entered something called whole business securitization. Instead of borrowing against buildings or equipment, the company borrowed against its own future. Franchise royalties, licensing income, brand IP, basically all the steady cash flows the business was expected to generate years down the line. That move unlocked a big pile of cash up front, which looked smart on paper. The problem was that once the securitization was in place, bondholders got paid first. Before marketing, before renovations, before menu upgrades, even before corporate support for franchisees. If sales dipped below certain thresholds, the cash that normally flowed back into the business was automatically diverted to service the debt. And that's exactly what happened. When COVID hit and sales collapsed, Fridays lost control of its own cash flow. Franchise royalties that could have been used to stabilize operations were locked into paying investors instead. So while competitors were trimming menus, upgrading tech, and investing in delivery, Fridays was financially handcuffed. It couldn't adapt quickly because it had already mortgaged the parts of the business that actually generate flexibility. By the early 2020s, Fridays was in survival mode. CEOs cycled in and out. Menu strategies flipped constantly. One year, it was endless appetizers. Next, premium steak. Then suddenly, sushi. Yes, sushi. Fridays partnered with a ghost kitchen platform owned by its private equity backers and began selling sushi inside its restaurants. Operators hated it. Customers were confused. It added complexity without adding revenue. At the same time, Fridays sold off company-owned locations to franchises, giving up real estate and assets just to stay afloat. And then the securitization imploded. In 2024, the trustee overseeing Fridays' debt structure stripped the company of control over its own brand assets. A planned rescue merger collapsed. Bondholders effectively took the wheel. That became the point of no return. On November 2, 2024, TGI Fridays filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The numbers were brutal. Over $37 million in debt, with roughly $50 million in outstanding gift card liabilities. In a matter of months, more than 130 U.S. locations shut down. As of early 2025, fewer than 40 corporate-owned restaurants remained in the bankruptcy estate. Internationally, the brand still exists, with nearly 400 locations across 50 countries. But domestically, the fall has been stunning. From over 600 locations at its peak to a fraction of that today. The fall of Fridays wasn't just about bad food or changing tastes. TGI Fridays failed because everything that once made it successful slowly turned into a liability. Singles bars faded. Casual dining got crowded. FLAIR became dated. Debt killed flexibility. Private equity optimized the balance sheet instead of the experience. And when crises hit, the brand had nothing left to fall back on. By the time Fridays tried to fix the menu, upgrade ingredients, and reconnect with its roots, there simply wasn't enough runway left. And that's when TGI Fridays lost its flair. If you like this video, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me which fallen restaurant brand I should cover next.